All right, so you've got a set of poi now. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about your poi, give you some drills you can do to get started with the basics, and a lot of vocabulary so you have a way to communicate this stuff to other spinners when you start engaging with the wider flow community, you know. So most poi have three main parts. They have the head, the tether, and the handle. The head, in this case, is a contact ball. So these are called contact poi. This is specifically for juggling or manipulation style. You roll it on your body. There are other heads that glow, have LEDs in them or are just a glow stick, something like that. And there are heads that are Kevlar wicks, so you can soak them in fuel and light them on fire. This is your tether. There are a variety of tethers. There are static tethers, which is a rope that's kind of more rigid. There are chain tethers for not burning when you have a fire head. There are other Kevlar tethers for the same kind of thing. There's a wide variety of tethers, very thin ones. The weight of the tether relative to the head will kind of change the way that the poi feels, and so it'll change the style that people tend to spin with them. The handles as well, there's a couple different kinds. This is a knob, and this is good for tossing because it's slightly counterweighted and it's easy to let go of. The other style, which I don't have an example of, is two loops, and you would put your fingers through the loops and the poi would hang down like this. You can put the loops so that the poi hangs like this, which is what I tend to do, and then grab. So when there's loops, I still operate like I would with a knob, but it's a more visual, kind of dancey way of spinning. So you could do it with a knob, but this is the sort of thing you'll see with those loops. So what we do with a poi, essentially, the main thing we do is spin it in a circle around our hand. And we can do that in both directions, in all the different ways we can orient it to our body. We could spin it horizontally. But the drill we're going to start with in this video is called a pendulum. The pendulum is just like in a grandfather clock, the thing that swings in a pendulum back and forth. When you're doing this move, try to make it so that the poi brings up to horizontal, makes a horizontal line, swings down to the other side, and comes back up to horizontal. I'm doing it up high so you can see it, but down here low, this is another place you could pendulum, or way out here to the side, or way to the other side across your body, or way up high, or even so that it's swinging behind your back like this. And you can also do it on the side of you, like so. And we'll get into these. These are different planes is what these are called. And we'll get into that a little bit more once I've got some drills for you to do while we're discussing that stuff. That's how we're going to kind of run this video. Is I'm going to show you some drills. So while we're talking about the nerdy details of vocabulary, you can be practicing these things. So here's the basic pendulum drill. Just take them, swing them back and forth. Hands slightly further apart than the length of one poi. When we talk about distance in poi spinning, a common metric is a unit length, and that's just the length of one poi. So we'll have our hands slightly over 1 unit length apart so that we can bring both heads up to horizontal like this. So while you practice getting that really clean, if it's so easy for you that you already have it down, try swinging them so one is out to the left and one is out to the right, or they're both in at the same time. This is another way you could pendulum your poi. And just like before, down low, out to the sides, way up high, just right here, one up high and one down low. Really just get comfortable doing this all over the place. And while you're practicing, and then also up here, when them go in the same time and same direction. Practice them in all the different places. Just get comfortable with it. If they start to get wonky and move, or they start to be different than what you're intending them to be, just slow down and start over. There's no rush. You want to take all this very slowly because you want to understand what is happening. So it's called embodiment, right? You want to put your attention into your body, specifically your hands, so you can feel as well as visually see and mentally understand what's going on. So if you start to get real comfortable with pendulums right here, feel free to close your eyes and just feel what it feels like. See if when you open your eyes back up, the poi are where you anticipated them to be. That's a good concept to apply to all of the drills that you do, because ultimately it's what we're attempting to do is make the poi an extension of our body. So we want to be able to feel it. Just the way you know where your hand is behind you in space without having to see it, we're trying to make poi like that to us. So really put your attention. These drills might be simple, but put your attention into the drills. All right, so while you're doing that, I'm going to explain the overall goal of this. There are a lot of different terms that we as poi spinners use to discuss what is going on with these poi. They become kind of important for conceptually organizing groups of moves into patterns so that we can communicate them to each other. A very important concept, one of the initial concepts you want to understand, is the idea of a plane. A plane in math is just like a two-dimensional surface, right? And so we can understand this two-dimensional line or this two-dimensional surface that the poi is orbiting around on. That's called the plane, right? So there's a plane that I'm spinning on directly in front of me like this. It's almost like I'm standing up against a wall. So we call it wall plane, right? When you're doing it here in front of you, the pendulum drill, the pendulum is swinging on that wall plane, right? You can also spin in a way where there's a wall on this side of you and a wall on this side of you. So it's almost like you're standing in a hallway spinning on either wall. So you might hear this referred to as hall plane or wheel plane, because this is like if you imagine the poi are wheels, I'd be rolling forward right now, right? Also, I could be spinning them in a way where I'd be in this hallway looking down and the wheel would be rolling backwards. So the plane. The planes that are available to us are the wall, the wheel, and the horizontal. And, so you might call this the ceiling plane, and under your hand you might call the floor plane, but either it's horizontal, both of those. They fall into that greater category. There are also diagonal planes. These ones take a little bit of getting used to, but I recommend starting now, trying to get familiar with this plane. There's a good drill that you can do if you've been practicing these pendulums and are familiar with them. Feel free to move on to this next drill. This drill is called sphering. So what we're doing is we're spinning it right here in front of us on a wall, right? Slowly manipulate the way your hand is spinning the poi to adjust the plane. So now you're in this wheel plane. And try to do it. Bring back to the wall plane. Manipulate again. So you're into a wheel plane on this side of your arm. Or try rotating it through the horizontal and to the other side. Along the bottom and back up. As you do this, you'll notice that the direction that the poi seems to be spinning, like right now it's spinning forward, and now it seems to be spinning in reverse. So by playing with these plane changes and sphering like that, you're going to start getting more familiar with the various ways the poi could spin relative to you. In a moment, we'll talk about relativity because it becomes very important later on. But now, keep trying that sphering thing. But there's an important so the reason we started with pendulums is the orbit. This is an orbit, just the poi spinning around your hand, right? So the reason we started with pendulums is because from a pendulum, on the up side, you can give just a small oomph, just enough push to get the poi to go over the top and fall down on the other side. The reason we want to practice this is because this is the slowest possible way you could spin a poi. Gravity. Gravity has a speed. So there's gravity as your minimum speed. You can only go as slow as the poi head will fall. So by doing this pendulum drill and barely giving it enough momentum to get over the top, that's how you can control the speed of your poi to be the slowest possible speed. So now, maybe drill that one while we rant about these next things. As slow as possible. As slow as possible. And then in both planes. And I say both because I'm excluding horizontal and diagonal because penduluming in those don't really work. So try over, over. Or another fun way to drill all the planes is get this drill going. One flop this way, one flop this way, one flop this way, one flop this way. And I'm drilling with one hand right now. If that's easy for you, do it with one hand. Eventually you'll want to do all these drills with two hands because that's double the practice, right? You're going to want to be able to do all of this stuff with both hands anyway. So now would be a good time to start. So let's get both of them going. Flop over the top, flop over the top, flop over the top. And we're doing this on that wall in front of us. But rather than change the plane of the poi, we can change the plane of ourselves. So instead of facing the wall straight on like this, I'm going to face the wall kind of at a 45-degree angle. In fact, I'm going to take a stick or something and make a line on the ground directly in front of me. And I'm going to keep my poi in the plane of that line. My poi ideally will not deviate from this plane. Now I move my body a little bit. If the plane gets wonky, just take the time to correct. Nice and slow. Dial it in. Once it's dialed in, turn another 45. So now all of this is happening on that one wall to my right. I'll slowly work my way back to forward, and I'll do the same drill this way. I'm facing the wall at a 45, but my poi haven't changed plane at all. Now the wall is 90 degrees to my left, but the poi haven't changed plane at all. You can get real weird, real wild, and try to turn even further. So now I'm 45 degrees towards the next wall, the wall that's behind me. It's a little wonky because I keep looking at the camera. You wouldn't have to look at the camera if you were just drilling this, but the same thing. See what you have to change to make it work all the way behind you. Just play with it. It's an exploring thing. Be curious. Curiosity is a really good mindset to have in all this because you're going to discover moves as you drill other moves. So maintaining that curious mindset's going to be invaluable to making it fun and to learning new stuff accidentally, as well as intentionally. So that's a really good drill. Now we're going to try, there's a thing called a cross point. And for cross points to make sense, we need to talk about the center of rotation, which in the context of poi spinning would be your hand, right? Because if we swing one orbit, the center of this orbit from the point that it's rotating out of, is my hand. So the hand is the center of rotation. The orbit is a 2-unit length orbit, right? Because there's one on this side, that's the radius. One on this side, that's the other half of the radius for your diameter, right? So the diameter of this circle is 2-unit lengths. You can think of it that way in super nerd terms. So there's a thing called the cross point. That's what we'll discuss next, the cross point. The cross point is the point in the middle of one and another plane. So we're standing, for this example, I'll be spinning in the hallway, right? One poi on my one side, one poi on the other. Let's actually start this a little bit differently. Let's get our pendulum drill going because we're good at this now. I'm going to turn so that they're both on my right side. And now I'm going to get a steady orbit going. This is reverse, according to me, because the wheel would be rolling this direction. So we're going to call this direction, relative to me, reverse, right? So we're in our drill, and we get the poi just spinning, orbits in reverse, both of them on the wall to my right. Now, I'm going to move the center of rotation of one poi, the poi that's reached across my body to its non-native side. I'm going to move the center of rotation so that it's on this wall that's on my left side, my native side of my left hand. As the poi scoops up in its reverse pattern here, this reverse swing, as the poi is scooping upward, I'm going to drag the head across. It will be horizontal from my hand in the middle of this cross point, and it'll start falling back when it reaches the other wall, right? So it's coming up to this middle point, and then I put my center of rotation on this other wall. It'll continue to spin on this wall. Same thing to get back over here. As it scoops up, I'm going to drag it through. Now my center of rotation is back on this wall. Your center of rotation, your hand, where your hand is, determines where the poise plane will be, right? So if I'm crossed over here and I want to move it to this wall, but my hand doesn't make it past my body in that cross point, in that moment of crossing there, if my hand fails to do that, if it, let's say, only makes it this far, then I hit myself. Or coming across this way, it's the same thing. If my hand doesn't make it all the way to this other plane, that's when I'll hit myself. Because, the center of rotation determines where it's going to spin. And if the center of rotation is somewhere where your body is, you're going to hit it. You're going to hit your body with the poi. So really think about moving this center of rotation all the way over to this plane in the time that it scoops from here to horizontal to up. That's your time. That's the cross point, is right here that you have to get to this other plane. Right there. So we've been doing all these examples in reverse. Scoop. 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 Now they're both spinning in reverse and I'm in a hallway. I can scoop the other hand across. Do my drills on this side. And now, just like our previous drill, we're going to keep the poi spinning in that same plane. We're going to rotate our body. And now, the cross point is the same spot, but since we're spinning the poi in a forward direction, it's going to be as the poi is scooping down. We want to move our center of rotation as the poi scoops down all the way to this other plane, right? It has to make it the same distance all the way across. Scoop. And now, as it comes down, scoop, scoop. So it's the same sort of thing. We have our drill. This time we're going to get the poi both spinning and forward. As the poi reaches the top and starts to descend, I move this center of rotation all the way over to this other wall. And now we'll take this hand and do the same thing, all the way over. Scoop back. Scoop back. Do your pendulums. Now, let's do a little bit of a sequence here. We'll have the poi spinning in one direction. We'll turn to our, whatever direction you need to, so that they're both spinning in reverse to you. Scoop it over. And now do your pendulum drills. So you're drilling them now in the hall plane. When they get into this reverse, scoop back to where you started. Take the other hand, scoop it. And now you're in forward. You'll notice that these pendulum drills feel exactly the same, even though I started one in reverse and one in forward. Well, it's because pendulums change direction. So every time you swing it, you could go from forward to reverse. For example, if we were doing our drill, we choose reverse, we scoop it over. If I just do one pendulum and then start spinning again, now I'm in forward. Do the other pendulum, back into reverse. So that's a bunch of stuff for you to drill already. While you're drilling that, we're going to talk about this compound motion idea, right? Moving your center of rotation during that half of the orbit to the other side, that's a compound motion. What do I mean by that? It means the poi head's spinning and the center of rotation is moving, right? So there's going to be a lot of compound motion. That's going to be a very important thing. Basically, all the moves are combinations of a spin or a pendulum or a stall or something and moving the center of rotation to make a cool pattern. That's essentially what poi spinning is, that and juggling. So compound motions. There's a name, another vocab term we want to become familiar with, that is hand path. So center rotation is your hand. What is your hand doing, right? In this weave, my hand path is going from one plane on my one side across to the other plane and then back. So the important hand path is just getting your hand far enough across your body and far enough back. That's the hand path. The timing of the move will determine, what the pattern looks like. So hand paths will become much more important later. So just keep that in mind, that there's a name for what you're doing with your hand. It's called hand path. Another concept that we have to get really familiar with is this relativity idea. It's like the idea that I'm spinning these forward, right? And it's spinning a specific direction to you, the audience. From where the audience is standing, it's going to the right, which is forward to me right now. Now it's going to my left. It hasn't changed anything with the audience, but for me, it's changed. Now it's going reverse for me, but nothing's changed for the audience, right? So when we talk about forward or reverse or any of that, it's relative to something. And so because we're the ones spinning it and we'll be talking about these moves, we'll generally be discussing this with direction relative to ourselves, right? The way it's presented is when you take the audience's point of view in, so how do you present a move? Like this, at this presentation, just kind of looks like two balls going up and down. But from this, it's like the buzzsaw. This is a very famous move, this classic right here. So this is the way you want to present it to the audience because the effect is a lot cooler than this. So that's something to keep into mind. There's this idea of timing and direction, right? So direction we just discussed, that's relative to us. And the other version, a thing that direction has is relative to each other, right? So this is same direction because the poi are moving in the same direction, right? This is opposite direction because the poi are moving in opposite directions. That part's pretty straightforward. Then there's timing, and timing is where in the orbit are the poi relative to each other. So this is same time, right? Because they're both at the top of the orbit at the same time. This is same time because they're both at the top of the orbit at the same time. This is split time because one is up while one is down. So the timing is split. This is split time because one is up while the other is down. So the timing is split. You'll hear discussed amongst poi spinners when they're talking about different moves and different patterns and stuff, timing and direction. So that's generally same, indicating same direction, or opposite, indicating opposite directions. And then there will be same or split. So this would be same time, same direction. This would be split time, same direction. This is together, op, because they're moving at the same time, they're moving together and opposite directions, and split op, because they're moving in split time in opposite directions. There's variations in the vocabulary you'll hear people talking about, but ultimately it's usually discussing some kind of idea of that, right? And so just to expand that a little bit further, keep doing your drills, I'm kind of ranting now, but to expand it a little further, we have split same, and now split same forward, split same reverse. So the last part is relative to me. Split time, same direction, in reverse relative to me. There's also with, there's another, so with opposite direction, it gets a little weird because one's moving forward, one's moving reverse, the other one's moving forward, the other one's moving reverse. So it's hard to say which one of those is forward and which one is reverse, right? So the terminology that I really appreciate is overhand. Does it come from the top down, or underhand? Is it scooping from the bottom up? And so these are other terms you'll hear to describe the way the poi is moving relative to the spinner, to you. You know, forward, overhand, 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 reverse, underhand, underhand, whoa, underhand, underhand. So that's some more terminology that you're likely to hear. Now we take and we apply an actual, a physical thing to do to all of those. You have all of the building blocks. If you've been practicing these pendulums like this, as well as like this, and if you've been flopping them over with that center of rotation shift from one side to the other at that cross point, if you've gone through all of those drills so far, you'll have developed the necessary skills for the following. We're going to start same time, same direction, and let's just say spinning to your left, because they're spinning to my left. I'm going to do the cross point. Now I am same time, same direction, spinning forward in the hallway. I'm going to do the cross point again, but with my other hand. So now I've turned 180 degrees. I'm going to do a reverse cross point and turn another 90, so I'm back in the hallway, and a reverse cross point to get back where I started. You can use a series of 90-degree turns to turn 90, 180, 270, 360. And if you've been drilling everything in both directions, you can do those turns either way. This has opened you up already to a lot of freedom. So now you have this, you might have been moving your hands around and getting familiar with all these different places you might be spinning these things. And now you could do the same thing on this plane. And here. And here. So with just those little building blocks, you can start to come up with some really cool looking patterns. Now let's do the same thing, but with the poi going in opposite directions. I'm going to start with them spinning overhand, both of them moving in. My hands are 2 unit lengths apart. This is the easiest distance to start, I think, because the poi don't really interact, So now I'm going to turn to my left. To my left, the poi is moving in reverse. So I'm going to scoop up for that cross point. Whoa, boom, just like that. Now, because the poi are moving in opposite direction, my right hand is moving overhand, and so it'll feel like a forward thing. And as my poi scoops down, I will hit that cross point. Now, my left hand feels like it's moving in forward if I change my body to face it. So it scoops forward. And my right hand is moving in reverse. So it scoops, right back where we started. We want to drill that in both directions. So I'll think about my right hand, scoop it over. Now I'll think about my left hand. Now I'll think about my right hand. And now I'll think about my left hand. So there we go. Did you realize when you were turning, I'm doing both overhand. I turn 180, both are going underhand. Turn another 180, and they're overhand again. Every time you turn 180 degrees, things tend to flip, right? So forward, both are spinning forward. If I turn 180 degrees, now they're both spinning in reverse. So by doing these turn drills, not only are you practicing those cross points, you're also practicing all the planes and all of the directions. So if you just want to become super proficient and have a lot of freedom of movement I recommend getting all of those basics down. I didn't show you any moves, but knowing all of this stuff is going to make all of your moves easy to do. It's built, these are the building blocks for what will eventually become moves. So I hope that was thorough, and I hope that it was fun. And if you have any questions, just let me know, and put on some tunes and start drilling, see what you can figure out.